He was the former #1 golfer in the world several years ago. He had fallen very close to falling out of the top 100 in the world. And a few months after beginning training with us, he was back in the top 10. My name is Nick Bolhuis. I'm the Vice President of Performance Programs at Neuropeak Pro. I've been here for almost 19 years. When I started, we were a small psychology practice in Michigan. We worked primarily with kids with ADHD, anxiety, academic issues. We were doing a variety of interventions, whether it be counseling, testing, but also a lot of neurofeedback and biofeedback training. And so we've kind of morphed over time where, moving from a strictly clinical population where people were coming in with diagnoses and treatment for that to now really living in the performance space, realizing you don't need to be diagnosed to be looking for ways to focus better, sleep better, handle stress, those types of things. There's a lot, and I think one of the coolest ones for me, and I'm free to talk about it because he shared his experience with us, but he's a professional golfer named Jordan Spieth. I'm a huge golf fan, had watched Jordan and been a fan for years, and a couple years back he was kind of going through a rough patch in his career. I mean, competitive golf is extremely competitive, and he had reached out, and because he had some friends of his that have trained with us, and he started to train with us, I remember right before Christmas one year, and shortly after the holidays. He was extremely diligent. That's the thing with these professional athletes. So many of them, their dedication to training is phenomenal, and you understand why they're so good at what they do. They just train different than everybody else. But I think it was about his third tournament back, everything just started to click for him, and he went from he was the former #1 golfer in the world several years ago. He had fallen very close to falling out of the top 100 in the world, and a few months after beginning training with us, he was back in the top 10. He's a wonderful guy too. You like to see and be a small part of his success, knowing where he had been, where he had kind of slipped to, and then being able to see him regain and get back to the top of the mountain there. Really, really rewarding time, and been fun to watch as a fan as well. That's the great thing about using the EEG, using Myndlift and neurofeedback. One, there's always going to be a subjective component when you're talking about success. Hey, do you feel better? Do you feel more focused, less stressed? Are you performing better? But then being able to back it up with the data and say, hey, look at how your brain is firing different from before. It's not placebo effect. The work that you've been putting in, we can quantify those changes. That's incredibly rewarding for them to be able to have that feedback that shows it wasn't a waste of time. You're not just thinking you're doing better. There are true things that are changing in your brain. Folks that travel, I think that's one of the biggest things with athletes. It's just the travel component. And, back in the day, when they would try to train on the road, we would literally have a little briefcase of equipment for them to take. It's computer, cords, wires, sensors. They're already traveling with a whole lot of stuff. So this was one more thing. They would do it because training works and it's beneficial to them. But again, just thinking of how can we make the user experience better? Everybody has a phone, so they're going to be carrying their phone around anyway. And so being able to offer minimal additional hardware has been a big game changer for them, and allows them to continue to train regardless of where they're at. To be able to sit there and have some of our athletes doing their brain training while watching their own highlights on YouTube, getting feedback, it's kind of a surreal experience sometimes. The key always is signal quality. When you're going to be measuring EEG, does the hardware capture accurate data? Because if not, it's a non-starter. Because like in our facilities over the years, we've always used very high-end clinical grade equipment so that we can ensure we're gathering the best data. We're collecting good information. We have the flexibility to create our own training plans, which I think is crucial for the practitioner to be able to do. I mean, we have a knowledge and experience of the brain, and each brain is unique. There are other platforms out there, competitors, if you will, that don't allow that flexibility, being able to customize a protocol for an individual based upon their brain. I think that's so important. Every brain's different. And then again, just the ease of use. There's other good products out there that maybe aren't as user-friendly. And I think if you're going to ask somebody to commit to any training program, you have to have as few barriers to entry as possible. I would say always have a mindset of wanting to learn. Never rest on your laurels, think, hey, this is the way I've always done things, this is the way I'm always going to do it. And being adaptable in a variety of ways. Again, we adapted to the Myndlift platform, different from things we had done in the past. But you have to adapt. You hit on it earlier in the conversation, being adapted to the unique needs of the client and the individual. So there's still, to me, is that human element when you're training somebody of connection and understanding them. And I think we all long for, and there's benefit to that. So the technology is great. You want to lean into it. That's going to do the heavy lifting. But there is the being able to understand who you're working with, because if they trust you as their provider, they're going to trust what you suggest to them. And if you don't have that relationship or that trust, they're not necessarily going to follow through like they normally would.